Hey, welcome back to Mr. America Hart. I'm John Hart, your host, and today we're covering one of the, well, what I call the big lie regarding HIT, high intensity training. In the last, 2 or 3 years, we've seen this big, resurgence of sorts of high intensity training in social media, and well deserved. I mean, it's an actual training principle, training with high intensity of effort, not training too often, keeping the workouts brief, doing, let's say, and at least training to momentary muscular failure, going beyond momentary muscular failure. These are all the main principles of high intensity training. There's something I left out. What was it? It was one more thing. That's right. Training in some kind of super slow motion fashion. Like this has also been assumed to be high intensity training. And y'all, I've done videos on this before where I've pointed out that because of this very last video that Mike Mentzer had done, this heavy duty, high intensity training video the day before he died. And it was released back around 2001, immediately after he died. Unauthorized by heavy duty and the heirs of everything Mike Mentzer, because there were inconsistencies in there. And the one thing that's happened is in the last few years, those videos clips of them have been re-released and put out all over social media, and everyone assumes that's high intensity training. And in that one video, there's the model training and Mike instructing him to train with very slow motion, sometimes beyond even what Mike is telling him to do. He's telling him to lift a weight in 4 seconds, but he's taking more like 8 or 10 at some point. So there's inconsistencies, and that's one of the reasons why it was never approved as being official heavy-duty, high-intensity training. But besides that, I have a few points to make here with regards to this rep speed thing, okay? I've shared with you how I've trained using high intensity training, and I've used a slower motion of repetitions when I first was exposed to it back in the mid-90s, and then I did it again 2 or 3 more times. And I call it the heroin of all high intensity techniques because it worked so well the first time I used it for an 8 or 12 week period. But then it never worked again. I like to take a technique and give it a fair shot and work it into the ground and see what happens doing it. And the only problem with this slow motion technique was that it never worked the same way again. And I originally got a lot of my information on that subject. Now keep in mind, Mike Mentzer was training me off and on throughout the 90s and up till his death. Excuse me. And he never had me doing slow motion repetitions. That never happened. And nor was he training his clients that way. We trained people out of the same gym. I was there, okay? And my exposure, however, because I was learning, because I wanted to learn more, because I wanted to try new and different things, my exposure to slower motion reps really came from Dr. Ellington Darden. Dr. Darden wrote an excellent book right here called The New High Intensity Training. And this came out actually in 2004. But the truth about Dr. Darden is that he's written, 25 books on the subject. And so in one of his books, it was either called Big or Bigger Muscles, something like that, in the mid-90s, I got a hold of this book and a couple of his books. And in studying it, decided to give it a try with my training partner at the time. And it was a great technique, like I said. Did it feel safer? There's 2 big points made about slow motion training, okay? And one of them is that it's somehow safer, okay? And that it's better because of those safe reps, okay? And that's assumptive. And I'd like to point out 2 things on that subject. Number one is in this 256-page book, which was sort of the crowning book on this man's, really, it's one of the best ones he wrote. Out of 256 pages, there's exactly one, maybe 3 paragraphs written on repetition speed. He covers every other aspect of high intensity training, but in his belief, slower repetitions are better. And keep in mind, even though he's a doctor, there are no studies that have been done, even to this day, comparing the slower repetitions versus normal speed repetitions. I call them normal, not fast, not injurious, not dangerous. Excuse me. So the assumption is that normal repetitions hurt people. Normal speed repetitions hurt people. That's not true. If it were true, then we would see just people like the walking wounded in every gym around the world for the last, 70, 80 years, going back to, they've been lifting weights in gyms all the way back to the 40s and 50s, in the 1940s, 1950s. So we're going back like 80 years. Where are all these walking wounded who have torn muscles, permanently damaged joints? They don't, look, some people do injure themselves because they get a little crazy with it. Overuse injuries as well. I can make a better case for people who have injured themselves simply from training too much, too often, too many sets, rather than, and maybe even attempting too heavy a weight at times. But repetition speed doesn't even come into the conversation at that point. So it's such a minor compared to all these majors that this is just not. And I'm showing you on the screen, by the way, some footage from that video showing how Mike Mentzer was instructing the model to do slow repetitions. And you're seeing how he was lifting the weight rather slowly. Excuse me, I really apologize. Time of year. Anyway, so it's assumptive that normal speeds hurt people and have been hurting people forever and is the root cause of why people have been injured. And that's not been proven. And then number 2, it assumes that slower is safer and better. Well, let's define better. Why do you lift weights? Why did you get into bodybuilding in the first place? Let's just call it bodybuilding, because the moment you start lifting weights to change your physique and increase your lean muscle mass and drop your body fat, you have officially become a bodybuilder. So this is not a hardcore step on stage bodybuilder I'm talking about. I'm talking about all of y'all who want to put on 10 pounds of muscle. You're a bodybuilder. 5 pounds of muscle, you're a bodybuilder. Get stronger and increase your lean mass, drop body fat. You're a bodybuilder. That's it. Okay? So it assumes that slower is better. And in a sense, that does make common sense that moving a weight slower without momentum is safer. But again, I say it again, there are no random control, human random control studies done comparing that to normal rep speed with an attempt at keeping momentum at its minimum, which is pretty much how the vast majority of people over the decades have trained. So that's 2 points that I contend. Dr. Darden there's 2 points with regards to Dr. Darden and his book right here. And I don't say this to negatively critique the man. I'm not. I'm actually saying I really appreciate and love Dr. Darden for coming out with works like this, because I've learned a lot over the years. He's been one of my reference points on training from the mid-90s on, once I got a hold of his works. And it's brilliant. It's brilliant. This book in particular that I just showed you is an excellent book. And I'll put a link down below where you can find it for inexpensive. Very, very good book. So I recommend you get it. But there's 2 points to make about Dr. Darden's selection of the subjects that he used in his books. And it's amazing because he's one of the few who have taken before and after pictures, before and after measurements, even during his studies with these subjects. He did it that way. You're not just trusting him on his subjective viewpoint, which would be biased. It's his own experiment, right? So we're not just trusting him on that. What did Dr. Darden do? The 2 points which he emphasized throughout his books when he would choose his subjects. Number one, he chose subjects that generally had longer muscle bellies, shorter tendon attachments, which automatically speaks of having potentially great potential for growing muscular size, hypertrophy, and strength, both. And likelihood of having a lot of muscle cells to stimulate to grow. So the longer the muscle, and you'll notice in some of these videos, my left bicep is relatively short, compared to my right one. It's an anomaly. I was born that way. And my brother has it, my dad has it. One bicep shorter than the other one, okay? It was never injured, right? It was never injured. But I can stick 3 fingers on my bicep tendon. Well, my biceps have never been on my left side I can. My right side I can only put 1 or 2 on my bicep tendon before I feel the muscle. So the potential for growth of a bicep that's shorter is not really great. I've had to work for every millimeter of muscle mass that I've gained. So I'm using myself as the example of proving the point I'm trying to make, which is Dr. Darden chose subjects who had great potential for growth, at least from a scientific point of view. Only God knows potential, ultimately. But he was taking a very good approach to choosing his subjects if he wanted to gain great success and prove that his training worked. That was number one. Number two is he didn't take people, he took people who were already working out in the gym in a certain way, generally in a higher volume fashion, generally with faster speeds, and he'd give them, I can think of one in particular, a national level bodybuilder, Keith Whitley. In certain organizations, I think he turned pro in bodybuilding. So here was a competitive bodybuilder at the time, not natural, by the way. So I'm talking about whether we're talking about natural or even enhanced drug bodybuilders, does not matter. But this guy was enhanced, okay, Keith Whitley. And Dr. Darden took Keith and gave him one of his growth programs, right, to put on muscle. And Keith grew like a weed. I mean, he grew. And he also put on some body fat, but he grew. But Dr. Darden proved that he grew quite a bit of muscle. Well, I'm telling you, it was a new stimulus for Keith Whitley. Just like in my case, the first time I did training like this with a slower motion, it was a new stimulus to me. It was not just, the fact that I'm doing it slowly. It was a new, and it was a very good hit, no pun intended, to my muscles at the time. But once my body became accustomed to it, and it quickly did, it didn't work any longer. That's my point. Normal rep speeds worked better for me. That's what I found. It worked better for my clients as well. The slower repetitions were, oh my gosh, were they boring? Boring. At best, I could say boring. I had clients actually getting annoyed with me because here I'm counting rep speed for them and telling them to slow down when they're going, I'm going slow enough, So I'm just giving you that side note. So Dr. Darden was taking subjects and giving them a new stimulus that was within the realm of high intensity training, but does not define high intensity training. So again, as I show you these videos or clips of videos of Mike Mentzer training the subject, training the model, back in 2001, you're seeing how he had them moving slowly, but the model himself was a sometimes training partner of mine, and we worked out together many times over many years. And we never used that protocol of using slow motion. We never did. He didn't build his physique using the techniques that you're seeing in that video. So how do you like that? You're looking at a guy who looks really good at that time. He looked really good for the video, but He didn't build that body that way, that's for sure. You don't hear him saying he did either. Did he train that way afterwards? Well, yeah. Yeah, he did many videos himself afterwards on social media, showing himself working out in a slow motion fashion, and he rather liked it. But he never looked better, never, than he did prior to that video. So there's a good point to make as well. So let me give you a good wrap up to this video, and we can use our common sense. And that is, we've been given various techniques and training programs over the years. If we look back, the high volume guys, do we have guys, both natural and enhanced, that built great physiques? Innumerable. I can't count how many built great physiques. As a matter of fact, I can rattle off 10 or 20 names of people. I don't want to get too deep in this video, but let's just say you know a bunch of people at your local gym who have been training high volume for decades, and they aren't walking around like the walking wounded. They haven't torn muscles off their body. They've built really great physiques, both natural or enhanced, both. That's indisputable, inarguable. And then let's move into the high intensity trainees, the ones that I've known over the years, who trained with normal rep speed, attempting to really mash the muscle, mash it, work it hard without using a ton of momentum. We're not about throwing the weight around, but we lift and lower under control using muscular tension all the way, emphasizing the negative or the lowering of the weight. That part is true. We all understand the importance of the eccentric lowering of the weight. Do we have a sample size of bodybuilders from that group, high intensity training with normal speed? Oh, yes, we do. Both enhanced in the drug world. I can think of Dorian Yates. I can think of Mark Dugdale. I could go on and on and on. As well as in the natural, okay? Myself, I've had training partners over the years. Okay, I could name them, but I didn't get their permission in this video to go and name them out or call them out. But yes, we do have a great sample size. I've trained for 40 years clients, thousands of clients. I can use all of them as examples of people who have grown muscle mass training with normal rep speed in high intensity training fashion. And keep in mind, I worked for MikeMentzer.com, so I taught for 12 years. I taught the training consultations for all of the clients for heavy duty. So not only do we also have my clients, we have Mike Mentzer's clients up till that time period right before he died. Just a few months before he died is when he really started experimenting with this slower rep speed. Okay? And again, indisputable. There's nobody from that time period. You don't see in the comments section to this video or to any other videos I've done on this subject, you don't see a bunch of people jumping in there saying, hey, Mike trained me with that slow motion and I built a great physique and I stepped on stage and this is how I did, or here's some pictures, take a look at my physique. You don't see that, you don't hear that, because there aren't, let's just say there aren't many. Do I doubt that there's any? No, I don't doubt that there's any. Maybe there's some. I don't know who they are because we've now had, is there a good sample size? Well, let's think about this for a moment. Well, yeah. So this slow motion stuff, this book was published in 2004, and this was one of Dr. Ellington Darden's later works. He was already 15 books into the weeds of high intensity training in slow motion fashion at that point. All through the 90s, he wrote books on the subject. So do we have a sample size from the 90s? Yeah, we do. Going into the 2000s? Yeah, we do. Going to up till now? Well, I'll just tell you this much. Wait till you read the comments in the comments section to this video. You're going to see a whole bunch of people that have been using these slow motion techniques and how it works for them. But where, again, where are name me 5, just 5 great physiques that were built using slow motion technique. Just 5 in the last 40 years. Name me 5 that built their physique based on slow motion protocol. Just 5. Not 1, not 2. I can name one with a nice body. If you can't name me 5 names of people over the last 40 years, I'd say it's a humongous failure to produce great physiques. That would be natural or unnatural. So this was all from my heart to you. I want to tell you that I point these things out to you in the hopes that you'll consider what you're doing and consider the workouts that you're doing, and also know that HIT is not this super slow crap that you see in that old Mentzer video. That's the only video out there wherein he's exhibiting it, having somebody train that way. Are there other videos where he mentioned such things? There's a couple. There's a couple from that time period. The problem is that he was inconsistent in what he said and what he wrote. And so, and even when he says something and then right there on film, you can see on video that he's not having the model train the way he said. He's going even slower than that. So it's all for you to consider. Anyway, I hope before you leave, you consider taking a look at my training courses that I've created. It's called HIT with Mr. America Heart. And in those courses, I do show how you can perform the exercises correctly, how you can go ahead and train with high intensity fashion using nothing but my home gym right here. My garage gym where I use barbells, dumbbells, basics, just basics. You don't need extravagant equipment to do these things. And then on top of it all, I have a training community, HIT with Mr. America Heart training community. I'll put the links all down below. Please consider joining that, wherein we have exclusive content coming out every week. Not just video content, but also some valid information being shared that I don't put out in the general public of this YouTube channel. So get in there, check out the exclusive content, all right? So that's it for today. From my heart to you, John Hart. Off to the left, you're gonna see this disc pop up any moment now. When that disc pops up, that's the subscribe button for my channel. Please give that thing a tap. And then down below, that'll let YouTube know you're interested in knowing I have new videos pop out. Down below, you're gonna see that thumbs up button somewhere down there. Hit that thumbs up button, won't you? Take a moment to do that for me. Personally, I appreciate that. It helps the channel out.